Hi guys, this is Miss Anderson, and this lesson is going to discuss the writing strategy called RACER. So our essential question for this lesson is, how does using a writing strategy like RACER help my writing become better? So our goal for this lesson is to learn to write with purpose. Let's go, guys. So what is RACER? All right. RACER is an acronym that helps us to understand a writing strategy. Okay. And so that writing strategy is for answering constructed responses. Okay. So RACER is an acronym. So RACER is an acronym. And it's a way for us to remember how to write a constructed response. Okay. So the R stands for restate the question, the A stands for answer the question, the C stands for cite evidence from the passage, the E stands for explain that evidence and your reasons why, and then the R stands for review all of your points and summarize. So now I really like this photo here, okay, because it shows how using the right tool for the job is very, very important, okay? So RACER, being a writing strategy, is a tool, okay? And it is a tool for us to use at the appropriate time or for the appropriate task. Let me put it like that. And I like this photo because it shows two tools, okay? But the tools are incorrect for the task, okay? So on the left-hand side, you have a wrench with a nail, and then on the right side, you have a hammer with a screw. So that's backwards. The hammer should be for the nail, and the wrench should be for the screw. So that's the purpose of RACER, is to make sure that you use it appropriately, okay? So now let's talk about constructed responses, okay? So there are different types of constructed responses. Therefore, there are different tasks, writing tasks that will be used for them. One type of constructed response is an essay, okay? Another type of constructed response is what's called an extended constructed response. Neither one of those, extended or essay, do you use the RACER strategy, okay? So the RACER strategy is only when you are summarizing or when you are using one or two paragraphs, okay? So it is a brief writing. It's not a long writing where it's 3, 4, or 5 paragraphs, okay? So please remember that the RACER tool is only used for 1 or 2 paragraphs, okay? So what I also have on the screens are some examples of constructed response questions that would fit the RACER tool, okay? So a common one that teachers ask is, what did you learn from this passage? So if you read a nonfiction passage, a question could be asked, what did you learn from this passage? That is a perfect job for the RACER strategy, okay? Because you're summarizing and you're briefly explaining what you actually learned, okay? So the other examples here are also to use with RACER, such as analyze how the author's word choice impacts the tone of the poem, summarize the theme of the passage, okay? Teachers love to ask you to summarize. Identify the author's claims and reasons, and then explain if the author successfully supported their claim. So all of these are among many, many other ways that questions can be asked after you have read a passage, okay? And so if that's the case, then you would use the tool of the RACER writing strategy. All right, so let's learn how to use that tool. Okay, so with most writing that we do, in order to keep ourselves organized, okay, we use a graphic organizer. And using the RACER strategy is no different, okay? So let's check out this graphic organizer. So we basically broke it down to where we have each of the letters and what the letters or what you have to write written already on the page, okay? So the R stands for restate the question, and that's going to be our topic sentence. The A stands for answer the question. The C stands for cite examples, and I'm going to discuss your evidence and how you do that. The E stands for explain how the example supports your answer, okay? And then the R stands for review and then give new insights, okay? All right, so let's do that. Okay, so we have a passage here that I'm going to read. Actually, we are going to read. You're going to read it right along with me, okay? But first, do you see the question above the graphic organizer, okay? And here's a good test-taking tip, okay? Whenever you're taking an assessment and you know there's going to be a writing or a constructed response, if you are able to, go ahead and preview the question before you read the passage. Why? Because it helps you to understand when you get to that part in the passage, okay? So it's extremely helpful, okay, to read the question beforehand. All right, so our RACER question here says, explain one reason why the manatees in Florida are endangered. Okay, so now we can expect to read why these manatees that live in Florida are endangered. All right, so let's check it out. The Florida manatee. So we're using the photos there, and evidently this is what a manatee looks like, okay? So I'm expecting the passage to tell me something about these manatees and probably to tell me why they're endangered. Let's find out. Manatees are slow-moving, friendly mammals. There are different types of manatees. The Florida manatee is a type of manatee that lives in shallow rivers and bays on the coastline of Florida. These gentle giants are herbivores and eat aquatic plants. Most adult manatees weigh between 1,000 and 3,000 pounds. Wow, that's pretty big there. So our reading strategy is to summarize in our head after we read each paragraph. So that paragraph just told me a little bit about manatees, where they live, that there are different types. In Florida, the ones that live in Florida are a type. They're called gentle giants, probably because they don't eat meat, so they're not hunters, okay? So they eat plants, and we all know that most animals that eat plants don't harm humans, you know, like giraffes. Giraffes are animals that eat only plants, so they don't harm humans, you know, of course, unless you, well, let's move on, okay? All right, so see how my mind wanders when I read? Okay, the next paragraph. Most manatees are very friendly and love people. Unfortunately, though, people are manatees' largest threat. Because of pollution, boating incidents, and loss of habitat, Florida manatees have become endangered. Endangered. Red light flashing in my head. Boat collisions have killed many manatees in Florida because they swim through the water very slowly. When a boat approaches, a manatee may have very little or no time to escape the passing boat. Aww. Pollution has also led to the endangerment of these animals. Just like dolphins and sea turtles, manatees can easily get themselves entangled in fishing lines and nets while feeding and swimming through the water. Fishermen's hooks, fishing lines, and nets get lost in the water after getting entangled in aquatic plants that the manatees feed on. Manatees can choke on these hooks and fishing lines. The Florida manatee has also become endangered because of their loss of habitat. Humans are developing waterfront homes, communities, and other buildings that have taken away from the manatee's shallow water habitat and food supply. Many dedicated organizations have been established to help manatees survive. Many people and organizations in Florida have created conservation areas and laws to help preserve the lives of these gentle mammals. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I read not one, but two or three reasons why manatees are endangered. But our question only asks us for one, so let's do that one, okay? So now we're going to use the RACER strategy to answer our constructed response question. All right, so the R stands for restate the question, okay? Florida manatees are endangered. That is my topic sentence, okay? I am just restating the question. Florida manatees are endangered. And next thing I have to do is answer the question, okay? It said explain one reason why manatees in Florida are endangered. Well, one reason these mammals are endangered is because of pollution. Now, if the question had asked me to give two or three reasons, I could have changed that sentence to say several reasons why these mammals are endangered is because of pollution and blank and blank. Okay, so that's the way I would change it if I were asked to write two or three reasons. Okay. Now, the next thing I have to do is pull evidence from the text. So that's cite evidence or cite examples. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So now the sentence starters that you see under there, okay, in paragraph 2, the author states, that's a sentence starter that you can use in order to cite your example. Okay, the one that I use here, it says in the text. That is the most easiest one that you can use to cite your example. This is called a sentence starter, and it's also called a transition. Okay, in the text, it says manatees can get entangled in fishing lines and nets. They can also choke on fishing gear and other objects dropped into the ocean. So that is what I pulled from the text. Though that is the example that I pulled from the text, and I started that example with in the text. Now let's move on to next. I have to explain that example. So I have to explain how the manatees get entangled and what happens. How does that result in them becoming endangered? So let's look at my example. This demonstrates that humans need to be more careful about how they treat their environment and the animals in it. So let's look over here at our sentence starters, okay? We could have said this example demonstrates that humans. We could also say this proves that humans, or we could say this demonstrates, which is probably the easiest one, and that's the one I would say you can start with first, okay? So this demonstrates, okay, this is the example that I just gave, the evidence that I just gave, and what I'm doing is proving how that example makes the manatees endangered, okay? So that example demonstrates that humans need to be more careful about how they treat their environment, because it's not the manatees' fault that they get tangled up in fishing line. It's our fault because the fishing lines are lost or left in the ocean, in which that's the manatees' environment, okay? So we have to be careful how we treat the environment. We can't leave stuff in the ocean. That's not right for the animals that live there, okay? All right, so the last thing that we have to do is we have to review or summarize everything that we just wrote, okay? So let's do that. In conclusion, okay, that's always a good way to start your summary sentence. In conclusion, pollution, going back to my reason, okay? My reason and my summary should be the same, okay? In conclusion, pollution is one reason why manatees are endangered, okay? Now, if I had given two or three reasons, then I would cite, if I gave two reasons, then I would cite two examples from the text. And if I cite two examples, then I have to explain both of those examples. And then when I got down to review, I could say something like, In conclusion, pollution and blank, blank is the other reason, are reasons why manatees are endangered. Okay, guys, so we have taken a passage, okay? This was an informational passage. And so we have used this graphic organizer to write out our thoughts, okay? And then the next thing that we have to do is put it all together, okay? So we did our draft. If we're using the writing process, we did our draft, and now we have to go back and rewrite it, okay? Okay, so now let's put it all together, okay? So we have our graphic organizer where we wrote it all down, and now we need to rewrite it to make it into one paragraph, okay? So let's read this one paragraph and see how it sounds, okay? All right, so our question was, give one reason why Florida manatees are endangered. And this is what we wrote. Florida manatees are endangered. One reason these mammals are endangered is because of pollution. In the text, it says manatees can get entangled in fishing lines and nets. They can also choke on fishing gear and other objects dropped in the oceans. Humans need to be more careful about how they treat their environment and the animals that live in it. In conclusion, pollution is one reason why manatees are endangered. Okay, that sounds great to me, okay? So if you're using the writing process, and you should, hint, hint, then you're going to make sure you go back and check your writing. You're going to check it and edit it for spelling, for punctuation. Make sure you have anything capitalized that needs to be. Make sure all of your words are spelled correctly. Make sure you're not missing any ands or buts or anything that makes it unreadable, okay? And then once you finish, then you submit it, okay? But that is how we use RACER. So this was one paragraph. Now, if the question asked us for 2 or 3, then we would extend this and make it 2 paragraphs, okay? So that second paragraph would start with, another reason why manatees are endangered is, okay? And then we wouldn't have this conclusion until after that second paragraph, okay? Or in that second paragraph where we have explained our reasons why manatees are endangered. All right, so I think that is enough for now, okay? So what I would like for you to do is, I would like for you to go back to the passage, okay, that we just read, and then I would like you to use RACER, and I would like you to pull out another reason why manatees are endangered. Because remember, I told you that the passage gave us 3 reasons, and I was very careful not to tell you what those other 2 reasons are, because I knew I was going to ask you to do this practice activity, okay? So you're going to go back, use RACER. You're going to pull out a second reason why manatees are endangered, and you can write it exactly like mine using the sentence starters that I use, okay? And then rewrite it as a paragraph, okay? And then have someone read it for you, okay? All right, guys, it was wonderful. Thank you very much for sticking with me throughout this lesson, and let's use RACER to write our constructed responses. Thank you, guys. Bye.